What's up, everyone? It's your boy Showtimedr. I'm here with the band review. I'm a little late today. Slept in. Feel good. So let's get to it. So once again, for whatever reason, when you're at these banners, they show the 5-star stats of the heroes like we are going to use.
The 5-star stats, man.
But anyways, so let me get to the actual codex here and I'll show you these characters. Alright, let's start with the banner hero. I could actually find where they put her. Probably down at the bottom here. Yep, there she is. What a facade she has, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy boobs too, my god. Anyways, alright, so Miss Ética. Increase Stalk Allies max HP by 30%. Excellent ability right there. Especially if you have like a Claude or somebody tanking. Caster gains an emergency response stack. This is the passive. Upon death of ally or enemy. Increases all allies' recovery amount by 30% when emergency response activates. Decreases caster's damage taken by 50% when emergency response is present but does not activate. So essentially, someone dies, she gets this emergency response stack. Not sure if it stacks more than one. They kind of make it seem like it does, but they don't specifically say. Pretty much, you're increasing recovery amount, which is pretty excellent overall. Recovery amount for you newer players, that is not an active heal, that is a passive heal. So HP recovery, that is on that is on some runes and some passive abilities. That's what that's increasing. So 30% more of 100, you get 130, etc. And then it also decreases her damage taken here by 50%. So when she has it, she becomes quite a bit tankier. Not sure if it can be dispelled, probably can be, but you never know. And then her 60 passive here, 60% chance to stun all enemies for 1 turn upon ally's death, once per hero. Revives with 50% HP, and makes the caster's turn come more quickly and resets all cooldowns if the caster dies with an emergency response stack. So if you can dispel it, highly recommend dispelling that, because even if you focus her, not only is she going to be tanky, from 50% damage mitigation here. But also, you know, she has a self-revive apparently. And then she resets all her cooldowns a la Mary. So, try to kill her first if you can, get the emergency response stack off, or if you got some other way to deal with it. Maybe, what's it called? Melancholy. Should make all buffs. You know, not that good. So it seems like Nyx would actually be a hard counter to her. Anyways, we'll go to skill 1 here. So inflict damage 100% on one target, 20% chance to apply weakening agent, decrease accuracy for 2 turns, weakening agent blinds the enemy who removes the effect for 1 turn, and inflicts looming death, restores ally with the lowest HP's HP by 5. So pretty much it does the typical heal thing. 20% chance to apply this weakening agent. From what I could tell, it kind of acts like a blind. Blind in general is a 30% accuracy debuff. And it also blinds anyone who removes the effect. But, let's see here, she's fill it up. Yeah, you get the 10% healing, 160% for the base damage. And it only actually goes to 35%. Like, it kind of staggers the upgrade if you notice. Not everything gets a percentage upgrade to apply the actual debuff. So, but still, really strong for a 1. There's a lot of stuff going on there, so you can get her with a little bit of multi. Although now that I'm thinking about it, she probably wouldn't multi, huh? Because I think her 2 and her 3... Well, we'll see here. Alright, so on her 2, Thorough Examination. Cast Strengthening Agent on an ally and 2 adjacent allies to restore 20% HP every turn for 2 turns. So pretty strong heal over time there. Cone effect. Strengthening Agent blinds the enemy who removes the effect for 1 turn and inflicts looming death if the caster has an emergency response stack. So that emergency response stack is her passive right here. Whenever someone dies or on either side, she gets it. Consumes emergency response to revive one ally and restore 30% HP. So, the thing I don't get about this, and one of you guys that has this hero can tell me, pretty much all this stuff happens, right? Like she casts it on 2 allies and it heals and it puts a strengthening agent. But will this automatically, if she has an emergency response, revive one random person, or are you targeting that person? It seems like it's going to be one random person, but either way here, and then skill cooldown is 4%, or excuse me, 4%, 4 turns. And the regen goes to 40% if you level it all the way. That's pretty strong. And then the ally gets up with 60% health versus 30% health. That seems like a good skill to level. Honor 3, a 7-turn cooldown here. Special treatment, restores all allies' HP by 30%, 45% chance to apply strengthening agent to restore an additional 10% HP for 2 turns. 45% to apply weakening agent to all enemies for 2 turns. If the caster has any emergency response stacks, consumes emergency responses, so it seems like can't have more than one. To decrease damage taken by all allies by 20% for 2 turns. So pretty strong. You know, blocks damage, strong heal. The higher you get it, higher the heal goes, higher the decreased damage buff goes. And the higher chance, it goes from 45% to 65% to apply strengthening and weakening agent on your allies and your enemies. So that's pretty cool. She seems like a pretty cool unit. Definitely seems a lot more in tune with PvP versus PvE, but I'm sure she has her PvE uses. Kind of seems like she has like so much stuff going on all around that you could probably pair her with like another support and do just fine. And one of the things someone's commented on in the preview video was she seems like the perfect person to run with Cynthia, because she's not cleansing anything, but she's still like, you know, putting up a bunch of defensive and offensive type stuff, along with damage reduction and passive healing and recovery amount, etc. So, seems like a great hero. I definitely recommend pulling on her. You know, if you got your support set, you know, don't break the bank for her unless you really want her for whatever reason. But so yeah, when I open this emulator for the first time, it lags a bit. I don't know, like, I know she's like the creepy nurse, but there's just something about her that's like beyond that. And then also, you notice on her clipboard there, it has the, I believe, isn't that the Shadow Guild? You can see what their logo is. I guess it's really hard to see from here. Well, anyways, someone can confirm or deny that. But since we're here, we might as well go into Morrigan. So, Morrigan. Morrigan used to be super top tier. She's still super top tier, even if you don't have her outfit. If you do have her $20 premium outfit, improved, but quite honestly, she didn't need an outfit. They just did that for the cash grab. So on her 1, increase fire allies attack by 40%. Pretty strong, especially if you're not running a full fire team. Good to pair up with Cynthia, by the way. On her passive, excuse me, that was her leadership, I'm sorry. Demon Sword Bloody Petal inflicts damage equal to 50% of attack to a bleeding target at the start of a turn. So if you got a team that's stacking the bleeds, or even if it's just her, but she manages to put up bleeds at a good clip, that's very strong. Everything that Morrigan does for you newer players is based on her attack. It's always a percentage of her attack. Everything she does, from her buffing to her damage and her dots, everything. So keep that in mind. Bleeding target at, oh, sorry. Increase the caster's attack by 10% for 2 turns when attacking a bleeding target. Stacks up to 5 times, so that could be a 50% buff. Applies the status Demon Sword Bloody Petal to the caster upon killing an enemy to inflict 30% additional damage for 2 turns. Once again, 30% of her attack damage. Now, Morrigan's Madness, her 60 passive, 50% chance to apply Demon Sword Bloody Petal to the caster for 2 turns when attacking. So once again, that's the 30% buff. Right over here. Revives with 50% HP and becomes a Berserker for 3 turns upon death. Once per battle. Guaranteed counter attack and multi-strike and decreased damage taken by 25% once the caster becomes a Berserker. Now, when she becomes a Berserker, you can't control her, but if you cast something with immunity to abnormal status, like Ruse 2 does that, Abel's 3 does that, there's a couple abilities that does that. And she dies, she gets up as a Berserker and you can control her. Including the well, actually, no, you can't control the multi-strike, but you can control who she attacks, and then you can also control, you know, abilities. Like, sometimes when she's berserking, you know, she tends to get focused for whatever reason on all the tanky characters or characters with damage shields. Like, she'll attack Aemon, or she'll attack Kayn when he has his shield up, and so that's part of the reason why it's better than running with a Cynthia, because Cynthia's passive just gets rid of any type of shield or anything like that, so it's pretty nice. And the decreased damage taken, that is actually really good, especially when you guys eventually get to the Kali portion of the game. Kali's a 4-star boss. That decreased damage taken while it's up is really useful there if you can manage to keep her up through Kali's damage, which is actually fairly hard. Alright, so on her 100% attack on one enemy, 35% chance to cause bleeding for 30% of attack for 2 turns. And as you skill that up, base damage eventually goes to 160, 60% chance to cause bleeding for 2 turns, 30% of attack still. So pretty strong for a 1. And then also remember that every time she attacks someone that's bleeding, she gets a stacking buff for 10% of her attack. On her 2, this skill is actually very good. Inflicts damage equal to 120% of attack to a target and 2 adjacent enemies, so cone effect. 35% chance to cause bleeding for 30% of all of attack for 2 turns. Removes 1 buff from the target. So essentially, sometimes when it does this, it'll do like a 3 to 4 hit effect. Sometimes the bleeding actually goes on someone who you're not even attacking. Kind of funny, but as long as it goes out, it goes out. You want the bleeds to go out, because every time it's her turn, once again, for those who missed it, people are taking 50% of her attack damage at the start of the turn, as long as they're bleeding. At the start of her turn, rather, not just the bleed tick. So essentially, assuming you can keep the bleed up and keep Morrigan alive, you're doing 80% damage to them a turn, which is pretty good. And then also removes a buff. So if you ever see like an Abel shield or any type of cone effect, hell, that nurse Ética we were just talking about, she has that cone effect heal over time. Just go Morrigan them, dude. Just go hit Morrigan's too, dispel that garbage. Really useful for dispelling damage, immunities, all types of stuff. So anything you don't want the enemy to have. It's only 1 buff, so if the enemy has multiple buffs, it might not work on what you want it to exactly. But still really great ability here. Eventually gets to 192%, 60% chance to cause bleeding. For 3 turns versus 2 turns. That's pretty good. Now her 3 is what makes her. Her 3, it's a big hard ult, single target, damage equal to 300% of attack that ignores defense to 1 enemy, 60% chance to make the target unable to be revived for 2 turns. Decreases the cooldown of skill 3 by 2 turns if the attack fails to kill the enemy. And as you skill that up, it's on a 7-turn cooldown. Her previous, by the way, was on a 4-turn cooldown. I forgot to mention that. So essentially, hits really hard, ignores defense, chance to make the target unable to be revived, and decrease the cooldown of the ability if she does not kill with it. Now, as you skill that up, the base damage goes up. Also, the chance to make unable to be revived goes up. Until eventually you get the 480% ignore defense and 85% chance to make target unable to be revived, and it jumps to 3 turns from 2 turns for that. And then also the decrease to the cooldown also jumps to 3 versus 2 turns, so it becomes in effect a 4-turn skill cooldown, which is pretty nasty, assuming that it doesn't kill the target, which happens often these days, because this used to be a really good ability to like instant jib Ramu, Sid, trying to go to the Ruby. anyone that was wind, you were pretty much guaranteed to kill them as long as they didn't dodge, or Morgan, you know, she wasn't have some debuff on her or miss or whatever. But now that Eamon is in the meta, we'll get to Eamon later. This is not as good as it once was, unfortunately, because if Eamon is on the enemy team and you hit this, everything could go well. You could one-shot them. You could proc this unable to be revived, and they will still be alive because of the resolve meta. Eamon's resolve will heal them to half. So it's too bad, but you know, it's a counter. So still a really strong ability, and if you're fighting a team without an Eamon, or if you manage to proc the resolve on another character, which is a viable strategy, and then you hit with your Morrigan on the person you actually want to kill, it'll still kill them in most cases, unless they themselves have a resolve or resolve runes. But overall, Morrigan, top tier fire DPS right now. So definitely worth your pull if you don't have her. Speaking of, should I do Eamon? I guess I kind of led with Eamon. Okay, we'll do Eamon. So Eamon, this guy was a meta breaker. Still is. You see him on every PvP team. Can actually be a really good PvE tank as well. So his leadership increased light allies attack by 40%. Very strong. As far as I remember, I don't think light has a 60% buffer yet. They may, I just wasn't paying attention. So this passive, and pay attention, his passives are a little confusing. Increase the casters, that means Eamon only. Evade by 40% and accuracy by 40%. So essentially, he himself gets a huge accuracy and evasion buff. And keep in mind, he's a tank, so when he has you taunted, he's, you know, he's pretty much wrecking you. I forgot one thing real quick with Morgan, guys. Counters to Morgan, Tayo, Verdandi, anyone water that hits really hard. Those are good counters to Morgan. I try to offer counters up so people know how to deal with heroes. Now we'll continue with Eamon here. Increased damage dealt by all allies. So this is a group buff, the second part. By 30% when the caster is imprinted with Revelation Signet. Revelation Signet is his passive. He gets it whenever he uses his 1 and his 2. So that's pretty much all you need to know. As long as that is up, he's getting the evade and accuracy, and the party is getting the damage buff. Now, his 60 passive, Drayden Prophet, has a high chance for the caster's turn to come more quickly at the start of the wave. That basically means that he has, like, essentially a 50 to 60% chance of taking the first turn, no matter what his attack speed is, etc. Unless there's an enemy Eamon. And then activates resolve for one ally, one turn. This is what I was talking about with Morgan. If the ally takes fatal damage, restores the target of resolve's HP to fit by 50%, and increase their attack by 50% for 2 turns. So that's the reason why you usually don't want to focus a DPS whenever he's there, because he will buff their attack by 50%, and they will become a walking god if they are built halfway correctly. So this is very disruptive in PvP. Really good for you in PvE. Helps you get through like early phases of things that are pretty tough, like say Sid's dungeon or Howley's dungeon, etc. Now on his 1, it's your typical single hit with a taunt. Also puts up his Revelation Signet, which gives him the evade accuracy buff and the team the damage buff. And then as you skill this up, you know, the base damage goes up to 160, and the chance to taunt goes to 65. Eventually the taunt gets to 2 turns. A really good ability. I'll have to go into runes and stuff later. I forget. Well, basically, I've seen a lot of people run taunt runes on him. Taunt runes, once you build it, basically gives you 30% additional chance to taunt. Eamon with taunt is very nasty in PvP. Taunt runes, rather. You just give him some subs to survive, like HP, etc. Alright, so on his 2, Signs of Destruction, another very great skill here. On a 4-turn cooldown. Inflicts damage equal to 80% of attack to all enemies, 40% chance to taunt the target for 2 turns. So this taunt is actually stronger than this taunt, because not only is it AoE, but it taunts for 2 turns. The percentage isn't as high as this, but still, you're hitting everybody with this, so they all have a chance to be taunted for 2 turns. And if you get taunt runes, even your rank 1 will be at 70%. 100% chance to grant all allies guaranteed counterattack 1 time for 2 turns. Guaranteed counter, super strong on like Tayo, who hits 50% harder when he counters. Also, the new hero Nikita, she counters harder, or excuse me, she multis harder. My bad. But still, pretty much, that's good for pretty much anybody because you know they get hit, they counter, they put up their abilities. Even like that new nurse girl, Ética. So, anyways, so one time for 2 turns. Yeah, so the counter's only once, even though it says 2 turns. 100% chance to imprint the caster's Revelation Signet. That's a self buff again, and we've gone over that. Now, as you skill this up, chance to taunt goes up, base damage goes up, and eventually you get the 70% chance to taunt. So if you get taunt runes on him and is fully skilled out level 2, 100% chance to taunt, which is very nasty. And then 128% base damage. Eamon's really not there for his damage, guys. So on his 3, inflicts penetration damage equal to 180% of attack to one enemy and casts Engraving of Destruction for 2 turns. I'll get to that in a second. Inflicts damage equal to 180% of attack to 2 enemies adjacent to the target with a 50% chance to cast Engraving of Destruction for 2 turns. Engraving of Destruction inflicts damage equal to 100% of max HP when skill 3 is used. So essentially, he puts us on the primary target, Engraving of Destruction. He has a chance to put it on the 2 targets to the immediate right and left of your primary target. And if they use their skill 3, which is their ultimate ability, if they don't have something like a shielding effect or something similar, they're going to basically kill themselves unless there's a resolve or a revive, etc. Now this is on a 7-turn cooldown. As you skill this up, base damage goes up. It's penetration, so it's going to go through most shields. Your base damage goes up on both your primary and your extra targets. And then the chance to cast Engraving on the other targets also goes up as well. Until eventually you get to 288% damage on both. Engraving of Destruction goes to 3 turns versus 2 turns. And then, if you notice, the skill cooldown here actually goes to 6 turns when you get all the way from 7 turns. So super strong ability. This ability is very nice, especially in Christian's dungeon on phase 2. If you run in there with 2 Aemons, you can completely bypass phase 2 pretty much. Because you just have 1 Aemon ult one of the characters, 1 Aemon ult the other. One of them will get their ult off, but you know, you'll pass that stage in like 20 seconds. It's funny. So super strong ability. The only drawback to this ability is does not put up Revelation Signet. So you will not benefit from the evade or the accuracy or give the increased damage to your team. Now, what you can do about that, because sometimes you have to cast this skill, give Aemon some multi. Try to get your multi, 30, 40% at least. And after he does this, he will cast this and then do Revelation Signet, and hell, he might get a ton off. So that's my recommendation for him. Now, Aemon counters. To be perfectly honest, there's not too many Aemon counters in the game. A Cynthia, or anyone that ignores armor ignores defense with accuracy, you need at least, because he has base 5% dodge, and then if he has Signet up, he's getting another 45 or 40%. So 45%. Most characters' accuracy, if you don't mess with that at all, it gets to 10 to 15%, depending on the type of character. But, don't be afraid to give Cynthia or whoever ignores armor, especially in this meta right now, another at least 10% accuracy. You don't have to specifically build for it, but if something has like 1 accuracy sub or 2 accuracy subs, throw it on them, because, you should be able to one-shot most things with Cynthia anyways, or May, or whoever it is that you have that ignores armor. Verdande is a good counter as well, because Verdande is the only hero in the game that stops resolve. And pretty much anyone that hits hard and ignores armor and can actually hit. But Aemon overall, very solid tank, one of the top tier tanks in the game, along with Ian. So, also a very strong character on this banner. So you got 3 very strong characters on this banner. Now, most people, we're going to get the Nyx here. Most people are going to tell you that this character isn't so strong. Do not believe them. This character is mad underutilized and This character is amazing, so we'll go over here. So increase Dark Allies attack by 40%. You know, solid buff there for Dark Heroes. 50% chance, this is her passive chain magic, 50% chance to increase the caster's attack by 10% for 2 turns. If an ally's skill applies a debuff, stacks up to 5 times. So anytime an ally applies a debuff, she's getting more, she has a good chance to get more attack damage. And 60% chance to remove 1 debuff from the caster when attacked. So essentially, it's a passive, so that's kind of confusing. Essentially, when someone attacks her, she has a chance to remove a debuff. Pretty much how that goes. Now, Magic Concealment, this is her 60 passive. 100% chance to cast Veil of Phantasm on the caster for a turn at the start of the wave. So essentially, even if he's one-shottable by, say, Christian or whatever, at the beginning of the wave, she's going to have Veil. They're going to have to figure out a way to get rid of Veil. Because Veil, you can dodge anything, even penetration damage. 100% chance to inflict damage equal to 80% of the attack to the target and 2 adjacent allies when attacking a cursed target. This is super strong. You'll see more about cursed targets here in a second, but curse, for those who don't know, it's your basic dot. It deals 30% of attack damage, like most dots do in the game. But essentially, this means that you are going to do 80% of your attack to the target and 2 adjacent enemies when attacking a cursed target. Now, what this means is if you have, say you're fighting a team of 5 and say 3 of them are cursed, or hell, say even 2 of them are cursed, just the second person and the 4th person, when she does her AoE attack, which is her 3, she will be proccing this extra damage. So her AoE damage and the additional damage from the curse as well. So this character can get really effing nasty really quick, especially in PvP. So number 1, Runner 1, she attacks 2 targets base, and she has a 35% chance to cast Curse and inflicts damage, like I said, 30% of attack for two turns. As you scale it up, base damage goes up, chance to Curse goes up till you get to 112 and 60. Remember, this is attacking 2 targets, guys. So your chance of putting Curse up is pretty good. Honor 2, Twilight Shock, inflict damage equal to 200% of attack to 1 enemy. 100% chance to Brand for 30% for 2 turns. Brand, essentially, for those who don't know, makes you take 30% more damage from everything, as long as that debuff is up. 70% chance to decrease the target's turn speed. So pretty much, it's a snare. It'll delay, it'll knock back their turn on a 3-turn cooldown. So that's pretty strong. As you skill it up, base damage goes up, chance to decrease turn speed goes up. So eventually you get to basically 100% chance. And this goes to 320% damage on a 2, which is very strong, and 100% chance to put the brand up as well. That's more damage amp there. Honor 3, this is the AoE I was talking about earlier. Inflicts damage equal to 120% of attack to all enemies, 50% chance to cast a curse on 2 enemies to inflict damage equal to 30% of attack for 2 turns. This is her bread and butter. This will normally be the first skill you use out the gate in PvP. And you should try to make her attack speed so that she goes like maybe 4th or 3rd, something like that. Try to get other curses out there because of her passive. So if you have like a Mary, if you have a Sinclair, a Nyx, or excuse me, this is Nyx, a Cheshire, even Decane, anyone that puts up curse, you want her to kind of clean up the damage that they do, because I'll go over the team in a second, guys. This is actually a Recu PvP team if they build it right. But real quick here, inflicts damage equal to 120% of attack to all enemies, 50% chance to cast curse. I probably said that already, my bad. And then as you skill it up, the base damage goes up and the chance to curse goes up. And then eventually when you get her max rank, 192% on base damage, 80% chance to cast a curse. If you notice, the skill cooldown goes down to 5. Not super important, but, you know, it's there for you. So essentially the way that Nyx teams work in PvP, generally Nyx is the leader. Not always, but generally Nyx is the leader. And you will run her with Sinclair, who also does curse meta and ignored armor stuff, and has his own AoE ult. 5-person ult. Cheshire, who also has another AoE ult, she can put Curse up and she can put up lots of that Veil of Phantasm to help mitigate damage. And then you also run that with, it's your choice now. If you have to have the premium costume for Mary, even if you don't, Mary will do lots of damage. Curse, she's dark as well. All those heroes that I named are dark. And then Decane, you can sub in Decane for any one of them as well if you wish. If Decane's at half health for whatever reason, he'll auto crit. So you should actually be happy if you see Mental Seal on Decane. Because it basically means he's going to wreck pretty soon. As long as that multi doesn't go off. And then for your 5th team member, you're going to want someone that causes a lot of interference. So it needs to be, in most cases, most people I see, they do Aemon. We went over Aemon earlier, or they do Claude, because Claude can also put up that Shield of Veil of Phantasm. He has that health regen, and he can put up Looming Death. And he's just significantly, because he can taunt up to 3 people with his 1. So that is the Recu team there, because even if you're running like a typical res, double res, Aemon, tank, 1 DPS, 2 DPS team, this team will do so much damage to all of your heroes that the Aemon resolve won't even matter, and the self-revives and all that stuff won't matter, because everybody will be low, everybody will be cursed, and everybody eventually will be dead, and you'll be stunned, and all types of effects, so... Not necessarily from Nyx. Nyx is kind of the cleanup, like I said. And, you know, in order for this team to work, though, you have to kind of micromanage the attack speed on who's going to go first, who's going to clean up, who's going to put up mitigation buffs. And pretty much, you just, whoever goes first, like Sinclair or whoever, you just alt. It should be, say, let's say, okay, let's say Sinclair goes first, Sinclair ults, and then say Cheshire second, Cheshire ults. These are 5-person ults, guys. Then Nyx ults to clean up whoever has curse on them. And then every time Cheshire's critting, by the way, he's putting up those Veils of Immunity, and she can do it with her 2 as well. And then Claude goes and Claude ults, so now you're all protected from most things for at least a couple rounds. And then, you know, your other DPS goes and ults, and it's just ridiculous. You don't even need to run a revive with that team. So Nyx is very underrated. You can argue probably the weakest here on the banner, but still super good. Still super amazing. You can run her in PvE too, especially if you get a Curse Synergy team going. So anyways, guys. That is your banner review. Oh, I guess I should come up with counters for Nyx. So Nyx, your counters. Pretty much anyone light that hits hard. Saya, Christian. I know there's a couple other light heroes that hit hard, but you get the gist of it. So, and then Nyx as well, she will do very well. I forget the name of the rune set, but you can look it up. But basically, it increases damage to people under abnormal status by 30%. So pretty much, you know, this will start hitting for 110%. This is going to hit for 150%. You can also get her the rune set that increases skill 3 damage by 50% first turn. You should do that with everybody on the team, by the way. And yeah, dude, this is just a Recu team. Alright, guys, but that's pretty much your banner review for the day. So I'm Showtime Doctor, Showtime DR on Twitch. You can find me here on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button if you like the content. And there's a link to the Discord in the notes. And, you know, leave some comments. Let me know what you got. Hopefully, whatever you're pulling on this banner, it's going to be good no matter what. At least if you get the banner units, guys. So good luck to you. And I will catch you guys later. Peace. Have a great day.